the drugs? The drugs are where the disease is not.
As long as drugs are not available to everybody, he will not take them.
My name is Dylan Mohan Gray. I'm from Mumbai, India, and I'm currently getting ready to release my film Fire in the Blood in the UK and Ireland on February 21st and 22nd. The genesis of the project for me was an article I read in The Economist, of all places, back in 2004. I was working on a film in Sri Lanka, and I happened to read an article about one of the characters in the film, and it kind of piqued my curiosity, and I started reading more, and I had an opportunity to actually get to know some of the people in the film through a couple of quirks of fate. So, you know, I became quite obsessed with the story, but not so much from the point of view of wanting to make a film about it, because I wasn't really a documentary filmmaker. But just sheer curiosity, and started talking to people about it. And at some point I thought, you know, it would be very important to tell the story, because it soon became clear to me there was very little written or done about it, either in book form or film form. Literally woke up one morning and decided to do it. And I thought it would take 2 years, and it's taken a lot longer than that. It's been about 5.5 years so far. The aim of the film from the very beginning was to document a very important story in history. And in that sense, the objective has already been accomplished, because we have documented it. This is something that killed a minimum of 10 million people, and that is actually a conservative estimate. I think the number is actually a lot higher. That, obviously, it's very important to us that people see this film, that they learn what happened, that they see that the conditions have been laid for this to happen again, possibly even a greater scale in the years to come. And finally, I think, you know, there's an incredibly inspirational story in here of people that took on the most powerful governments and corporations in the world. When we started making the film, I compiled a list of people that I really wanted to have in the film. And, you know, some of them took a while to get, but eventually we got all of them. And some of those people didn't end up being the ones that featured in the film. There were some others that I hadn't really thought would be major in the film, but actually their stories turned out to be so inspirational and important to me that I ended up, you know, incorporating them into the film. You know, one of the reasons we spent a lot of time in South Africa is because South Africa occupies a unique position. First of all, it's the country with the highest number of HIV positive people in the world. And it's also the country where you have very, very strong institutions of higher learning. You've got very strong corporate culture. You've got a very strong political culture. You've got a very strong activist and NGO, civil society culture, as well as a massive number of people affected by HIV/AIDS. So this is really the place where, in a way, Africa and the West came together. You know, you realize very quickly people don't, for the most part, don't know what a patent is. They don't really know what it's all about. And, you know, we delve into that a little bit. In earlier versions of the film, we spent a lot more time talking about the history of patents and how they came about. You know, it ended up being that, you know, we had to reduce the running time of the film, but there's still a little section where we talk about the genesis of the idea of intellectual property, of patent protection. And, you know, I think it is a good thing if it's done correctly. We have a Nobel Prize winning economist, Joseph Stiglitz, in our film. He's one of possibly the most famous economists in the world. And as he said, you know, there's a fine balance to be struck between promoting innovation and stifling innovation. And, you know, it's very important for people to realize two things, I think. One is that the patent system is not something that's intrinsic to the DNA of our culture. It's a flexible thing, and it's a regulation like any other, and it's meant to serve the public interest. And at which point either patents or any other type of intellectual property ceases to serve the public interest, then, you know, the grant of exclusivity that comes along with it should be revoked. Well, the most emotionally challenging part of making the documentary for me was really, you know, it was a very long process of trying to find a way to tell the story in a way that can be very understandable and accessible to the general public, without dumbing it down and without, you know, removing the necessary elements of which, you know, coming from all kinds of different strands. You know, there are contextual strands about things like patents, about things like the pharmaceutical industry. There are the historical narratives the macro political story, they're the small scale human stories, and trying to find a way to interweave these in a way that feels organic and natural for the viewer, was very tricky and took a long period of time. And also, coming from a place like India where we don't have a documentary culture, it was working in isolation for long periods of time, very lonely and filled with self-doubt and what have you. Will the film ever get done? So that was, I think that maybe a surprising answer, but that was actually the most emotionally challenging part of it.